We are surrounded by rice. Everywhere here at this time of the year has got plenty of rice growing. Our neighbours all grow rice. They're usually in small plots like this one behind me. This is across the road from our house. And then our place is there, and this neighbour's growing rice. He's also got some other vegetables in a plot here. But mostly at this time of the year, it's all about the rice. All of life here is focused on growing rice. There's other crops. This neighbour's got mangoes growing. I think there were lamyai trees here before, but he's taken them out maybe a year or so before we moved in here and has planted mangoes. And he's had some really good crops off those, but mostly this is the landscape during the rainy season in northern Thailand, and it's rice for as far as you can see. You got some lamyai trees over there and other trees, and then our yard, which has got all sorts of flowering trees and fruiting trees and stuff in it, but mostly the focus of life at this time of the year is about growing the rice and getting the best harvest that they possibly can off of it. And it's hard work. They're small farmers. They're mainly older guys now, guys that are mainly, I think, in their 70s. There's a few younger people still farming, but these guys, you know, these families, they've worked hard. They have got their kids a good education, and the kids are generally now often working at higher paying jobs in the cities or away from here. So it'll be interesting over the next 5 to 10 years to see how the rice farming continues. But as of now, it's still a massive part of life all over Thailand. So I thought I'd share some of it with you today. Living out amongst the rice is quite amazing. When I was living in the city, you're aware of the rice growing, but living out here, literally got it right next door, right on our boundary, then it's quite a different thing. The fields are irrigated. There's a little canal running alongside the road, and then they just dig trenches and let the water flow across. This one's just coming straight through at the moment, and then down into the field there with the rice, where the rice is planted. And it doesn't run every day, but it runs many days, and they control it. It's all carefully organised and controlled as to when the water comes and who gets the water. And I think that even it determines what time of the year they plant. This year we didn't get a lot of rain early on, and so the rice was planted a bit later. We're now sort of mid to late September, and there's still a lot of growing for the rice to do yet. But it hadn't, like I said, it hadn't started raining so early, so the rice was planted a little bit later. I think they probably plant in relation to the phases of the moon as well. So this is just coming down beside our place, and this is our view. This is what we look at, and then sure, up to the mountains everywhere there. So when it is planting time, it's a busy time. There's a lot of people out and about. There's a lot of activity, and a lot of these fields here, they're quite small, and you can see that they're terraced. So we're just up on the hill, but further down where the land is flatter, the fields are larger, and they actually get tractors in there to plough and everything. But these fields here, our neighbour still does, using the classic iron buffalo. So he's got to work pretty hard to plough these fields and get them ready. So they flood them, they plough them again, get them smoothed out, and then they flood them and leave them flooded for a while, and then come in with usually a whole team of people, a bunch of neighbours get together and plant the rice. So it's planted, the seed is planted first into one field, a smaller place, and they plant it to scatter it, and it grows really, really densely. And then when it's about 20 centimetres tall, maybe 8 to 10 inches tall, then they'll come and transplant it. They'll pull those small plants up and bundle them, and then go and distribute them across the fields, and then plant them into the flooded fields. And partly this is to help reduce the weeds, because the rice will grow because it's tall enough, but any weed seeds that are around aren't going to sprout. So it helps keep the fields pretty clear of weeds, which is nice. The only place that we're going to get weeds is along in between the paddies. So it's pretty intense work, but it's a really cool time of the year when people are planting, when they're out there. There's big groups of people. I'll be out riding in the morning and there'll be a whole group of motorcycles and maybe 20 people in the fields all planting rice and chatting together and having a good time. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty nice way to see people still doing things in an old traditional way, and that the result is that they're going to have food to eat for the rest of the year until the next season, where they'll do the same thing again. But now sometimes we've seen people using seed planting machines. It's a little contraption that they put the seed in and walk behind it, and they plant the seed this way. And sometimes it's worked okay, other times it doesn't look like it's really given such a good crop. The seeds haven't sprouted so well, and there's generally more weeds in it. So that's always something that they've got to be wary of and thinking of, but they're looking to try and reduce the amount of labour. So if they can plant the seed directly and not have to transplant it, it's not such a big deal, because it doesn't require so many people and so much organisation as it does if they're doing everything by hand. And then harvest is the same. My neighbours get into these fields here and they come in, manually harvest it. They come in with their little sickles and cut it by hand and then pile it up, and then thresh it by hand as well. Sometimes over a piece of wood or a log, or just sometimes straight onto the tarpaulin, and they release the seed that way and gather that up, bag it up and cart it off, and take it down to the mill to take the husk off it. And then from this land here, from our neighbour here, Long T, we buy his rice straw from him because it's fabulous for our garden. It's really good mulch and makes really good compost when mixed with buffalo manure and stuff like that. So nothing goes to waste, and we make good use of it. I've run out, so I'm looking forward to them harvesting the rice so I can get the rice straw again this year. The other thing that I really love about this time of the year is the sound of water. We've got a canal at the top of our section, another one at the back, and then the water for the rice is just gravity fed through the terraces of the rice fields, and so it's running all the time. So you can hear it when the canals are open, when they open the way for the water into the field. It's just this constant sound of this, like a nice small stream flowing down next to us. And it's all around, so when I'm riding my bike in the morning, you've got the sound of flowing water through the valleys and through the fields, and it's just wonderful to see the life-giving water and how they use it. And then of course the other thing that means is there's a lot of life. There's crabs, there's fish in the water, and that brings the birds. So we get egrets and other birds down here, and they're just hunting in the rice fields, and absolutely beautiful. Sometimes as I'm riding my bike in the morning, it's like watching a National Geographic TV program or something like that, because the bird life is just so beautiful and the surroundings are just so wonderful. So it's a great time to visit northern Thailand during the rice growing season, during the rainy season, but it's a time that people shy away from too, because they think, oh, it's raining all the time and it won't be so good. But as you can see, the weather today, it's pretty good sometimes. It's really good most of the time actually, and it just generally only rains maybe an hour or two a day. Occasionally we'll get a week where it sets in, but not very often. And it is certainly the most picturesque time for landscape photography and just enjoying nature, because the rice is just so lush and green and the landscape just looks so terrific all around us. So if you're in the area, pop in and say hi and come and enjoy the rice. And as I've been here, I've learned from our neighbours that they take great care and take great pride in their rice. They've got to do the best that they can, not only to get a good harvest, but also to make sure it looks nice. So they're often out looking at the fields, looking at the seeds, especially when the plants are young. They're taking a really good care of them. There'll be farmers out pretty much every day walking the paddies and looking at their crops to make sure the crops are growing well, but to make sure everything's just looking nice. And it is an absolute joy to be in northern Thailand at this time of the year.